Hello, I'm Nadezhda Sablina, and today in our program, we'll talk about what it means to be an internationalist. Today, behind many of the wars taking place in the world, genocides against peoples, economic crisis, and widespread poverty, lie the profit-driven policies of imperialist countries. At the forefront of imperialism's aggressive policy is the United States. It is clear that the US attempts to create a legitimizing framework through narratives such as security, democracy, or freedom for what is in essence open imperialist aggression. US aggression is not limited only to bombs or wars. Economic sanctions, the support of reactionary fascist coups in various countries, containment policies through military bases, and pressure on international institutions are also part of this aggression. All of these methods are used by imperialism to protect its own order and interests. What does this imperialism policy mean? This policy, led by US imperialism, means the domination of economically advanced capitalist countries over undeveloped countries through economic, political, cultural, and military means. This is the reason behind the attacks by the US and European countries extending from the Middle East to Latin America and from Asia to Africa. The cost of these aggressive policies is imposed on the world's peoples. As a result, oppressed and exploited peoples are returned poverty, migration, destruction, and death. Wars unleashed by imperialism are not wars of peoples. They are not in the interests of either the peoples living in the United States or those living in the bombed countries. The winners are always arms companies, monopolies, and small sections of the bourgeoisie around them, along with the servants who clean up their mess. The only joint and correct response of the world's peoples to imperialism's aggressive policy is internationalism and internationalist solidarity of peoples. Internationalism holds that the working class and oppressed peoples have common interests beyond national borders. The enemy of a worker in one country is not the worker of another country, but imperialism itself, which drives them into war and exploits them. Against the aggressive policies of US and European imperialism, the duty of revolutionaries is not to stand behind the interests of their own state, but to organize solidarity with all the peoples of the world. The peoples suffering exploitation and aggression in Palestine, Iraq, Syria, Venezuela, and African countries are the result of this system of exploitation, and we will expand the struggle against imperialism by organizing solidarity. While imperialist countries pour resources into military spending, drawing the world in exploitation and bloodshed, they also cause poverty to deepen within their own countries. These war expenditures are resources stolen from healthcare, education, and social services. Imperialism harms both its own peoples and the peoples of the world. For this reason, being internationalist is only possible through struggle against imperialist policies. The wars being waged are not for national interests, but for the interests of a handful of exploiters. What is the task of revolutionaries and socialists? Faced with imperialist attacks, the task of revolutionary organizations is not merely to expose them, but to organize and expand joint struggle through common international organizations against imperialism. War and economic crisis created by imperialism are not phenomena that can be explained by the goodness or evil of certain leaders or by accidental reasons, but are the natural results of imperialism as the most reactionary and fascist form of capitalism. It is the responsibility of revolutionary organizations to explain this truth to the world's peoples, to make the national and international dimensions of exploitation understood and to expose them. This duty also includes exposing the relations of our own country with imperialist countries and struggling against imperialism in our own country. Those who remain silent in the face of imperialism attacks, support them, or even indirectly support these policies are accountable before the peoples. Any revolutionary organization that does not struggle against imperialism and fascism in its own country has no real claim to internationalism. How should international solidarity be? Imperialism's policy of aggression is directed against all the peoples of the world, and the struggle against imperialism must therefore be common and international. The US-backed reactionary coup in Venezuela, the ongoing occupation in Palestine, and the endless wars in the Middle East are common problems for oppressed peoples and revolutionary organizations worldwide. International solidarity does not mean passively observing the struggles of other peoples from a distance, but organizing concrete solidarity with those struggles. This solidarity is only possible through the mutual strengthening of revolutionary struggles in each country. Because internationalism is not an abstract slogan, but a class-based and blood brotherly bond established in practice. We must support the anti-imperial struggle of the world's peoples. US imperialism aims to break the will of the world's peoples through its military power, economic sanctions, and political pressure. The anti-imperial struggle requires a clear and consistent ideological struggle against these attacks. This struggle is not limited to opposing military aggression alone. It also includes sanctions, embargoes, economic blockades, and ideological disinformation. We must expose imperialism's humanitarian intervention or security justifications and reveal the true face of this demagogy to the peoples. Internationalism means defending the right of peoples to self-determination. The right of peoples to self-determination is one of the fundamental principles that socialism has contributed to the struggle for the rights of the world's peoples. This principle means that a people decides its own future, economic and social order according to its own will. Imperialism's divide and rule policy sustains its order through war by turning peoples against each other. The right of peoples to self-determination is the precondition for international solidarity among peoples. Without recognizing this right, under conditions of ongoing oppression, genuine socialist unity and solidarity among peoples cannot be established. The right of separation granted to people in the Soviet Union after the October 1917 revolution is a concrete example of this principle in practice. Today, imperialism applies this right with double standards. While it supports the rights of those serving its own interests, it denies and suppresses the right to self-determination of peoples resisting imperialism. The encirclement of Venezuela and denial of the Palestinian people's will, and wars and embargo threats against countries and peoples refusing to submit are all consequences of these policies. For socialists, the right of peoples to self-determination is not a matter for negotiation. We defend the gains of the world's peoples and expand internationalism. The gains achieved by the peoples of the world throughout history, social rights, the right to organize, national independence and democratic rights, have been won through heavy sacrifices. The imperialist capitalist system is attempting to reserve and reclaim these gains. Therefore, the duty of the working class is not only to defend rights in its own country, but also to defend the gains of the world's peoples. Wherever in the world there are peoples being oppressed or rights being violated, this is a common concern of all peoples. For this reason, defending the gains of the world's peoples is an organized, conscious, and continuous struggle that deepens solidarity. Internationalism means seeing the rights gained by the world's peoples as part of one's own struggle and expanding the struggle against injustice wherever it exists. Internationalism is the blood brotherhood of peoples. Expanding international solidarity and struggle is the duty of all revolutionaries. This duty also requires expanding the anti-imperialist and anti-fascist struggle in our own country. Those who do not expand the struggle at home cannot expand international solidarity and struggle either. That's all for today. See you in the next program.